Welcome to the EBFC Show, the easier, better for construction podcast. I'm your host, Felipe Engineer Manriquez. This show is all about the business of construction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Easier, Better for Construction podcast. My name is Felipe Engineer Manriquez. I am super excited to bring on two of my favorite people that I don't know why we haven't connected earlier. I'm just going to bring them on stage right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Mack and Ria Story.
Hey, Felipe.
Hey, Matt.
Hello, it's good to be with you today. Thank you for making all this happen.
Yeah, you are so welcome. We were chatting just before the broadcast started, and I told Mack and Ria, like, I am so happy that they chose to be this close together. So I'm going to be watching to see how they interact throughout the show.
We in love, man.
Yeah.
We're going to restrain ourselves.
You know, one of the questions we get is like, how do you stay married? You live, work, and travel and work together at the same time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're still married. The secret is we don't just love each other. We actually like one another. That helps.
And it's like, it's real too, people, because I've seen them together in different events and venues, and the way they interact and talk to each other, it's admirable and it's something to strive towards. So like the happiness between the two y'all is real. It's infectious.
Well, I'm better now. I've been working hard on being a better person.
Yeah, you have. I think that's part of the magic, Mac, that makes you so good. And Ria, I know your story as well, but let me not like just mess it all up. I want to let the audience hear from y'all. And while each of you are going to do a beautiful introduction of yourselves, I always love to ask where people are watching the show from. So if you can, ladies and gentlemen of the EBFC Show audience, just put it in the chat, let your friends know. And if you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and put a comment in the chat there as well. And there will be some time for some Q&A for Mack and Ria. And I know we will do a great job of answering your questions, even on the replay. Because some people, they got stuff to do, Mack. People are doing Kaizen events right now, or they're actually leading teams or being led by leaders. So let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. And Mack and Ria, I think if it's up to me, Mack, I would let Ria introduce herself first, but I'm going to let you decide.
Well, you know, one of the things that I always say when I'm introducing myself is I'm just passionate about helping people understand the leadership principles that I wish I had learned earlier in my life and earlier in my career, because life could have been so much different. And I look back on my journey and, you know, mistakes that certainly I've learned from, but wow, it could have been smoother if I'd learned the principles of leadership and connecting with people at an earlier point in my journey. So certainly some mistakes, but that's why I get excited about sharing these principles, because it's not just something I read in a book. It's something I've learned and applied to my life. So my name's Ria. I'm Mack's significant other. And that's the best way to introduce myself is just excited about what we're here to talk about today.
Yep. And we're 23 years into our journey. And one reason that's lasted 23 years because I chose to get a lot better by applying, you know, the principles that I teach and speak about and write about. Both of us do. For those that don't know, Ria's got her own brand, you know, focused on development for women, personal development, leadership development. Between the two of us, we have like 34 books and journals published. So just for your audience, though, I got to tell them, Felipe, you already know, but some of them won't know. They know, but they don't really know they know. So I got to tell them, you know, I'm bilingual. I speak two languages. A lot of people think that means English and Spanish, but you know better. It ain't English and Spanish. It's English and country. If you guys didn't understand what I'm trying to talk about here, it's because I'm speaking country. I'm much better speaking country than I am English.
I love that, Mack. And the first time that Mack told me that, I totally fell for it too. I was thinking like, what language does Mack speak? And I was like, my mind was just going through a Rolodex. And then when he told me the next country and I heard that twang, I knew we were going to be really close.
Well, you know, when we write, you know, we replace missing letters with an apostrophe. So we speak all over the country and sometimes outside of the country. And we were in Baltimore, Maryland yesterday, and I was telling those folks, I speak with a lot of apostrophes. You just can't see them. They replace entire words sometimes. But if you read my book, you'll see, for the most part, I pretty much know how to talk or write. I just don't talk that way because I am from the country. And I don't really want to change that. I want to be authentic, and that's part of the goal. But for the folks who are listening, you know, from a lean perspective, which is what we're going to really talk about, you know, just a quick snapshot. I logged 11,000 hours leading basically Kaizen events from 2005 to 2012. And in my plant before I started my own lean consulting company in 2008, from '05 to 2008. We started our lean manufacturing journey, and we were one of about 70 plants around the world, about a $2 billion company. And we've started down the lean path. And I was a green lean leader, and everybody in the plant was green. They didn't know anything about lean. Even the formal authority leaders, they didn't know very much about lean. And I had it done to me, but I was leading it now, and I was going to do it the right way and do it with everyone. But during that 3-year period, we went from minus 3% gross profit margin to plus 35% gross profit margin. And I had never read any kind of books like I write about now. I didn't discover them until actually I resigned and left. And in a few months, I discovered, in 2008, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I've been reading every day since 15 years, still read every day. So I hope we have some fun with it, folks. I hope they get some value out of today. I learned a lot in 11,000 hours, Felipe. Them people taught me a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, you did. And I know, too, that Ria, the two of you together are such a dynamic duo. And I think it shows through, like, even on the book that I'm reading of yours, and I'm going to just, so people are like, what book is Felipe reading from Mack? Currently, I'm reading Blue Collar Kaizen, Leading Lean and Lean Teams. And Ria, I don't know if you know this, but you show up in this book quite a few times.
Well, the secret is I get editing privileges. So that might be why. No, I'm just kidding. I think because we do what we do together so much, sometimes I'll say something or write something and I thought, did Mack say that originally, or did I come up with that? Because we just do, spend a lot of time talking about the leadership principles and the lean principles. And, so we do kind of just have a great synergy there. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I said that first or he said that first, but it doesn't matter because he can have all the credit as long as I get the royalties.
That's a great example. And Mack and Ria, some of the stuff that y'all were talking about, like, I want to just get right in and we'll plug where we're going to see you all soon in Detroit. So people, if you get a chance to come hang out with us, Detroit, at the Lean Construction Institute annual Congress, we twisted Mack's arm and Ria's arm, and we got them coming. They will be keynote speakers at the 25th, the silver anniversary, Mack. It's super special. Ria, I'm glad that you all are going to be joining us in Detroit, Michigan, the week of October. I think it's the week of the 23rd, and the Congress happens the 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. I will be there all those days. I'm going to get in line, Mack. I know the line's going to be long. And Ria, I want to be one of the first 2,000 people that take a selfie with y'all. So,
I don't know about that, but it is going to be a great event. We are looking forward to it, and doubly so because, like you said, this is the silver anniversary for the Congress, but it's also our anniversary, not our silver anniversary, but yeah, it'll be our wedding anniversary too. So double good times.
October 27th is our wedding anniversary, so we'll be celebrating 22 years up there with you guys. That's
beautiful. My wife and I are having our anniversary is the 25th. Ooh, I almost like stumbled there. Honey, if you're watching this, because it's a number, and you know how I get with numbers, but it's October 25th. So
you better fly out after the 25th then.
Yeah. I'm still trying to think, like, do I go to Detroit or do I just stay home?
Not getting involved in that.
Yeah, I'm going to keep thinking about it. So, for people listening, in the show notes below and in the description, if you're watching this on LinkedIn or if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll make sure that we've got links so that y'all can connect with Mack and Ria, because you absolutely need to get into the 30 plus books that they've read and written, and all that knowledge coming from the two of you. We're definitely not going to be able to unpack all of it, but I want to hit hard right away. Mack, one of the things that really got me to pay attention to you is not just your catchy blue collar leadership website, because that is super catchy. And I'll just throw that website on the screen so people can see what your site looks like. But what really caught my attention, it's just like you said, that you've had lean early in your career done to you, and not necessarily you were allowed to volunteer and learn, but you had a hunger for learning. And there's so many nuggets in your book where you address this head on with people. I want to definitely hear from you. Why did you pick blue collar leadership as your brand?
Yeah, well, when I discovered, leadership and personal growth content again, which was 20 years into my career, unfortunately, but once I learned it, I ain't ever left it. And so, as I got into it, I started, for the first 4 years, I just read books every day. And then 4 years into my journey, which was 2012, I just started going to conferences. The first one was John Maxwell conference, and a 3-day conference with him. And what I started to notice was all around me was mostly white collar folks. Nothing wrong with white collar folks. I love them too, but I felt out of place a little bit. And I noticed most of them were executives. And then as I got to talking to them, a lot of those folks, their company had paid for them to be there. Ria and I paid for me to be there, and it come out of my pocket. It was like $5,000. And so I started realizing that, and I'd already been reading for 4 years. So it really made me think about it. Why is the stuff that I'm learning through all of that mostly taught to white collar executives? Why is it not taught to everybody? And so I decided to put up the blue collar leadership flag, basically write everybody's name on the book so they'd know who it was for. I always tell people, if you could put out the top 10 greatest leadership books ever written, lay them on a table, and you could lay down one of my blue collar leadership books beside it, let some blue collar folks walk past it and tell them they can pick up whichever one they want. The majority of them is going to pick up the blue collar leadership book because it's got their name on the front. And then it's only a 1/4 inch thick because, they're small. Yep. And people say, I want that little book.
Yeah.
And that's what people tell me or say, Felipe. Some people, they'll say, why you write such little books? I said, because I want people to read them. But there's as much in those little books or more than there are in a lot of those big, thick books. A lot of people tell me, my books have all the stuff and no fluff because that's the way I load them up. I put some stories in there, but I load up quotes from all kinds of people. And some of those people I know, some I don't know. Some have different beliefs than me, and I don't care. I'm always mining for gold. So you'll read quotes from all kinds of people from all walks of life, different religions, different political backgrounds or whatever. I don't even care about all that stuff. All I care about is whatever the quote is, the value in that principle or that quote. That's all I care. And I just give credit to wherever I heard it. I don't care who it is or where I read it from. But yeah, I wanted to be the one to get out there for us, meaning the blue collar folks, because what I know is, especially the blue collar frontline workers, but it's all the blue collar folks, managers and upper level folks who work their way up. That crowd is the most, overlooked, underdeveloped, and unfortunately underappreciated group out there. A lot of times they're just the blue collar workforce. A lot of times they're just used for their arms and legs. And I like, with lean, I like, use them for their mind.
Right. Absolutely. That's beautiful. I love that. I knew you would disappoint. That's the brand that's on point. And like the way that I grew up, I went to university and I went into management right away. I've got the chance to lead some trades, but as I was growing up, both my parents were blue collar, and I got to get involved with different union issues with my father. And we talked about this on the podcast, and I promised everybody the podcast interview with Mack is going to come out soon. I just gotta, do my thing with the editing team. We're going to make sure that Mack looks amazing, and he will, and he does. I'm sure it's going to be fine. And once that date comes out, we'll put a link in the show notes here in one of the comments, a direct link to that show once it gets published and goes live. But I want to talk about something that you said, and you even quoted Ria in the book, in the Blue Collar Kaizen. You said that something about communication. And I think right now, everyone watching, you see Mack is answering my questions. We're communicating. We've set the stage talk. We've got a relationship. You even got your friends showing up because of the relationships you all have. Shout out to Jason, powerful Jason.
Yeah, man. Yeah. He's out there doing it. He's making it happen.
He's absolutely making it happen. And I think that communication part, Ria, where, Mack mentioned what you said about communication. I want to put Ria on the spot for a second, Mack. What is your philosophy on communication, Ria, and how does it help or hinder like the point of this continuous improvement, crazy people like Mack and I and yourself?
Well, communication in and of itself isn't just enough, right? Communication is just the transfer of information. It's the connection that actually builds the relationship. And that's what increases your influence. It allows you to be effective at leadership and influence, and process improvement is very much dependent on that. And I think that really is a fundamental principle. A lot of people, a lot of leaders just don't understand that concept of, I'm not just communicating. I'm not just sending an email or shooting information to someone. I have to take time, particularly if I'm in a leadership role, I need to take time to slow down and build the relationship first and build that connection so that when I need to transfer information or when I need your help to get an initiative done or when we go into an event, when we try to make a process better, we already have a relationship built on mutual trust so that we can go much faster once we get to that point. And so it really is about that relationship, because leadership is influence. Influence is based on relationships. Relationships are built on trust. And every single interaction we have with someone, we're either building trust or we're tearing it down. One choice, one action, one crossword at a time. So we either need to be intentional about building it, or it sometimes it will erode. And sometimes we don't even mean to, right? Anytime we're spending a lot of time living or working with someone, there are going to be the moments when you've had a bad day and you say something, you lose your temper, or maybe you don't even mean it. You just take out your frustration on that person. And that's a little bit of a withdrawal of trust. Because if you think about it from your perspective, you've never had somebody get mad and blame you when something goes wrong. And you think, man, I like you a whole lot more now that you've yelled at me and blamed at me. It doesn't work like that. So we have to be intentional about looking at it from that perspective and saying, okay, I need to have control of myself, because that's the foundation on increasing my influence and being able to be effective at home or at work and in life.
And I'll just add there, Felipe, a lot of people study communication to become better, more effective communicators. But when we talk about lean, especially when we talk about respect for the people, you got to go way past communication. You got to get to make a connection. If you're going to be effective at all, whether you're internally leading lean or whether you're a lean consultant from the outside, I did both, and I did much more outside as a consultant. And, where you come in every week, I get a new team of people I didn't know. They didn't know me. They didn't like me. They didn't like the last consultant. They don't like the boss. They don't like each other. They don't like change. And they ain't got to change if they don't want to, because all they got to do, I show up on Monday. If they don't want to change by Friday, they can just resist all week. And then they can blame me for it when I'm gone, and I won't ever get to come back, and they won't have to change, and life be good for them. But that ain't what happened. Every week was phenomenal. And not because I was anything special, but I did connect with people. It was all about connecting. Always still is about connecting. But I would go in and connect with the people. Ria touched on it, and I'll say it, in the lean terms a little bit, but communication by itself, that's just going fast to go slow, which is not, it's just the opposite of lean, right? Right. You talk about making a connection. When you slow down long enough to make a connection, you're going slow to go fast. Leadership principles and lean principles, they're all the same. And as Ria said, communication is about information, and I'll add in there, connection is about motivation, inspiration, and transformation. When you to do all those three things, you got to go far past communication. And you may not even know it. I'll share with you, and anyone listening ain't trying to sell it. I don't care if they buy it or not. But somebody may have an interest. But Ria's got a book called Straight Talk, The Power of Effective Communication. But it really ain't about communication. It's all about connection. But if you said the power of effective connection, a lot of people wouldn't know what the book was about. So we had to use the other word to get them to the book, and then they're going to learn how to connect with people. And that book is just like most of my blue collar books. It's 30 chapters, 3 pages each. You can cover a chapter in 6-7 minutes. I mean, folks, cover a chapter in a safety meeting each week or something like that, do book studies with it, all kind of ways to use this material. It's written very intentionally to be used for workforce development and for leadership development.
Yeah, I want to bring a story to life. In the book, I'm specifically referring to this book, this was recommended to me by you, Mac, because Mac, and I'll tell you all how he recommended it. So let me just fix this view. Okay, so I'm talking to Mac, and I was like, Mac, you got 30 plus books. Which one should I read? And then, instead of Mac just telling me, you asked me some questions about what I'm into. And then after we had an exchange, he gave me something that was just pure gold, 24 karat gold, untainted, just chapter after chapter, word after word. Just like Mac said, no fluff, just all the good stuff. And that's what's in this book. But one of the things that resonated with that, and it changed how I worked that week that I read the chapter, Mac, you had a story where you're going into a plant to do a Kaizen event, a week-long event, and you go to meet somebody, and the first thing they said to you, before they said hello, before they heard you speak, they said, "You're the guy I want to choke."
No, he said he wanted to cut my
he wanted to cut your
throat. That's it. He didn't want to choke me. He wanted to cut my throat.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you tell people, can you give us a little more context of what that is?
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring it back to what I changed after reading that chapter for sure.
Okay, so I kind of share the story. It'll take a couple of minutes. It's
Yeah.
pretty powerful story, but it was the first time I had been in that plant, but I had supported that company's plants in 2 other states, but went to that plant. I had been up there previously to kind of just tour the plant with the plant manager, and the whole point was they didn't know anything about lean, had never done it, so I went up, just did the walk and talk, looked around, learned about it, and talked with the plant manager, and found an area to do a pilot event. We were going to do standard work, and standard work for me is not just documenting the steps. Standard work for me is tear the whole thing apart and put it back together, and then document the steps, right? So I mean, we do that in a week, a production area. We would move everything, airlines, gas lines, water lines, all this stuff. Thursday was always the day to move everything, and we always did move everything. But anyway, toured around, saw this spot, and I said, what they doing here? I saw they had racks, they had all kind of inventory and process everywhere. Machines were far separated apart. There was a guy standing on a work platform and loading a small piece of steel in this machine and bending it and that sort of thing, and turn around, put it on a rack, and make some more. And I said, explain to me what's going on here. And he told me all about it. He was telling me they just had got all these racks, big, nice steel racks with casters on the bottom, which was great. The casters was a good leading thing to have.
Sure.
But the point was, in my mind, he didn't need all these racks. So, he was doing something very efficiently that didn't need to be done at all. So that's a big waste when you talk about lean. Anyway, he asked me what would change. And I said, well, this area it'll take up about 25% as much space as it does now. So we're going to reduce floor space, down 25% of what it is currently. All these machines will be, close together. And I said, the platform that guy's standing on, it'll be gone. He won't, he had on one of them expanded steel platforms, below it full of grease and trash and nasty like they always are. And main thing, though, it was a trip hazard, stepping up and stepping down. And
right.
I had noticed when I was looking at the machine, it had the machine was had 2 pieces of steel, and it had holes in it and pins in it. So you could tell it could expand the height of it. And it was expanded out. So I'm thinking, why is it expanded out? That's why they got to have the platform, let it down and get rid of the platform. You get rid of the trip hazard and the stepping up and all that kind of stuff. But I knew why they had it now, because ergonomically, he didn't need to be reaching like this. He needed to be down at a comfortable level. But, lean mind, I'm already thinking all that stuff. So I told the plant manager, I said, all that's going to happen, and I don't know what else. I don't know how much more, because it's just me thinking. I got a lot of experience. I've seen this a lot of times. So I said, but you got to do me a favor. Don't say a word about what I just talked to you about, because all the stuff I just told you, I know that's going to happen, but it ain't going to be my idea. I ain't going to come in and tell them to do all that stuff. I'm going to come in. I'm going to teach them some stuff. I'm going to share some information with them, teach them some principles, ask a lot of dumb questions, and let them figure it out. And I'm going to tell you, they're going to figure out way more than I know to figure out, because I don't know nothing about what they're doing. I just know about waste, and it's obvious there's a lot of it in this process. And so fast forward a month or 2 later, I can't remember now. This was a long, long time ago, more than 10 years ago. But and I told him, I said, whoever that guy is on that platform, if he can be on the event, that'll be great. Got to have the operator always. If I can get the operator on the event, I don't make it mandatory, but I make it clear that I always wanted, the operator on the event. So I show up, operators are sitting there at the table. They got a little conference room, got the long skinny table. He's right there on the left when I'm standing down at the head of the table. So I started on the right side, and we went around. I would always write on the board. I would ask people, how long you've been here, what you do, that kind of thing, what your position is, what's your hobbies, those sort of things. What do you know about lean already? But then the most important question for me at the end was, what were you thinking last week about this week? Because I want to know about the mindset, right? And the guy who's sitting down here at the left, the operator, his name was Andy. And Andy was sitting just like this. I'm over here. But he ain't looking at me. His arms crossed, eyebrows down. He ain't looking at nobody. He's mad. And I'm like, well, he's having a bad day. But anyway, we go around, ask everybody's sharing and talking. So I get to Andy. He still ain't looking. It's his turn, but he ain't cooperating. He's just sitting there. And I said, sir, what's your name? I got his name finally. and knew it was Andy. And I knew who he was because I remembered him from standing on the platform. And finally got him to share his basic information, but he didn't want to say what he was thinking about last week. He wasn't going to say that one. And I said, Andy, you the most important person on the team. I said, you got to share with us. And, I had to work him a few minutes to get him to finally open up. And he finally turns around, and I don't use profanity anymore, Felipe, but I'm going to say what he said. It ain't like a super bad word. It's just I just don't talk like that anymore. I'm better now, right? I hadn't used profanity since 2012. I used to use it if I said what's that?
Every day.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I said a one-word sentence, it had 2 words of profanity back up until 2012, but I'm better now. So back then, I asked him, I said, what were you thinking about last week? He turned around, he looked at me, and he was mad. I can't fake it like he was authentically mad. He said, you want to know what I was thinking back? He said, I couldn't wait. Last week, I couldn't wait till you got here this week so I could cut your damn throat. That's what I was thinking last week. And see, I had been reading the 7 Habits and talking about the pause button and stuff I teach about now. The old infantry Marine Mac couldn't have dealt with that very well. I couldn't have did that job back in those days. I mean, the old one, I would reach over and grab his esophagus or something, do something crazy to him. But the new Mac, I didn't have to do that. So I just reached over and pat him on the shoulder. I said, well, Andy, why don't you tell us how you really feel? And he laughed. Now, he didn't laugh, but everybody else laughed just like you did. That's why I said it that way, right?
Yeah.
But he softened up a little bit, and because he saw I wasn't being, reactive to it. I wasn't being angry about it. And he wasn't expecting that response either. He didn't know me. He'd never spoken to me. And I said, Andy, I just met you. I ain't been in the room like 10 or 15 minutes. I said, what in the world would cause you to feel like that about me? I had no idea, but I kind of did have an idea, right?
Sure.
But I didn't know 100%. I was assuming, but I know better than to assume with all this stuff with people. You gotta validate and let them make sure you do understand. He said, the plant manager, his name, he said, the plant manager said you were going to throw out my platform. I said, okay. Remember the story about the plant manager? I asked him not to say anything, right? But he went and told everything because he was more of a dictator, a manager of people, not a leader of people. So he wanted to appear in control. So he had to go talk about everything that was going to happen and get everybody, squared away, so to speak. And later, when I confronted him, he told me he had told Andy because he was trying to warm him up and get him ready. I said, well, you got him ready to cut my throat. That's what you actually got him ready to do. But I'm the leader. I'm the Kaizen consultant, the lean consultant. I'm the leader of that team. That's my team that week. Doesn't matter who they are, what kind of attitude they got or don't have, or if they like change or if they don't. I'm the leader. None of them report to me, but I'm the leader. I'm responsible. So I got to fix that. So Andy, said he said he's going to throw out my platform. And he needs his platform. He knows if he throw it out, he's got to work like this in his mind because he don't know all the other stuff that's going to happen. So he was frustrated about that. I said, well, Andy, I don't know you, but I can tell you this. You're the most important person on the team. If you don't want the platform taken away this week, I'm the one running this event. It's not going to happen. Nobody's going to take your platform away unless you want it to go away. And I said, I'll make you this deal right here. And you won't know it unless it happens. You just have to trust me. I said, but if somebody here, and I was talking about the plant manager, but I said, I didn't say that, but I said, if anybody in this plant says that platform's got to go away this week and you don't want it to go away, they really ain't nothing I can do about it except one thing, and that's to leave, never come back. And I said, that's what's going to happen. If during our event, you don't want that platform to go away, but some leader or boss comes in here and says it's got to go away, that may happen, but I'm going away too, and I won't ever be back. And I said, after our event's over, if that platform is still here, and later down the road, somebody moves your platform, all you got to do is call me. Ain't nothing I can do about it, but I won't be back. I said, I'm not going to support somebody who's going to disrespect you like that. So he softened up. He wasn't expecting all that talk, right? And I had to be authentic. I had to deliver results. I said, but you're the most important person on the team. I'm going to teach a lot of stuff. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And Andy was a hardcore blue collar guy. He had a big tattoo on his arm, said reefer in all caps. I said, later on, I asked him, I said, Andy, what's that on your arm? He said, oh, reefer. I said, what's that all about? He said, oh, that's my dog's name. I said, I bet it is. But check this out, Felipe. By by Wednesday, someone was on a forklift with a chain hooked to that steel platform, carrying it out back to the metal scrap bin. Guess who it was?
Andy.
It was Andy. It was Andy's idea then. He was happy about it. Andy actually loved the entire week because he had a voice that week. I gave him a voice. And when I gave him a voice, he got to have a choice. And everybody else was on board to support Andy. I had to facilitate making all of that happen. Most of the people there didn't like Andy because Andy was kind of rough around the edges. The plant manager told me later the reason he tried to soften him up was because Andy was a problem. But Andy wasn't a problem for me. I mean, I meet that man, he wants to cut my throat. I mean, that's his impression of me when I meet him, literally. And I didn't have a problem with Andy. I never had a problem with Andy. Plant manager always had a problem with Andy. A lot of these other people always had a problem with Andy. But Andy wasn't a problem. So what was cool with Felipe was we did that event. And I think we doubled the output of production in that sale. We got it down 25% from where it was before, floor space. We got rid of all those racks and we got single piece flow. And Andy loved it. And a couple months later, I was back there to do another event. And I walked out into the plant and I got those big steel columns hold the roof up. I noticed something was different. And what was different was every one of them had a sheet of paper on it. So I'm like, okay, what's going on in the plant? So I walked over, look at the sheet of paper, see what it was. And it was a lesson on trust I had taught during that Kaizen event week.
Oh.
So whoever put those up, I knew they were on my team. Mm. So I went on a treasure hunt. I want to find that the treasure being whoever that was on my team. I had support of at least one person in a really big way. So I go around, nobody knows. Finally said, oh yeah, Andy put those up. Somebody who wasn't on my team. Yeah, Andy put those up. So now I go find Andy. And I said, Andy, you put up all? He said, oh yeah, man, I made copies. We got a trust problem in this plant. And he said, everybody needs to learn what you taught us that week.
That's good.
And Andy, he still follows me on Facebook from time to time. That was 14 years ago or more. It's been a while.
Yeah. That's the kind of person that you are. And Ria, it's the same way. I see the same thing. And I'm glad that Jason made it to check you all out. So I'm going to just pop Jason back up again, give him a little more love.
Yeah.
For supporting. But that type of story, Mac, I read that and I instantly changed what I was doing. I had to go do a facilitation myself. And the people prepped me a little bit of what I was going to expect. And, like every team, you got issues. And I thought to myself, like, what would Mac do? And so first thing I did was just like you taught me, Mac. I introduced myself and then I made it about them and showed them connection. Like, this is what I've been tasked to do. With y'all's help, we're going to do it. And I said, we're going to do something different in this first step. We're not going to just jump right into the work. I need to get to know y'all and y'all get to know me. And I probably used the word y'all like 55 times, Mac. No exaggeration. And I said, and this is important because I think some people are new to the team. We don't all know each other the same way. Some of y'all have been working together for a long time. And we're just going to make a little bit of space so we can connect and know who we are. And then we got plenty of time to get into the work. And I said, if I do my job well, the work's going to be the easiest thing we do. And we spent 2 hours on that first part, Mac. But it was a value added 2 hours where people were connecting and they were getting to know each other for the first time. And some people even said when it came time to their turn to talk, they're like, we've been working together for a year and I didn't know anything of what that person just said until just now.
Yeah.
And then we went to go do the work. The thing that we were going to do was creating some collaborative plan. It usually takes 4 hours. This time it took about 60 minutes.
You went slow. Amazing. You went slow to go fast.
But that's so powerful what you're doing, because just because there's a group of people together doesn't make them a team, right? And that's what so many times we miss if we don't take time to slow down and build those connections in that relationship, because that's what changes us from just a group of people to a team that can be high performance.
And that's what a lot of Kaizen leaders, any leaders, they're missing that. They go in and they get a group of people on Monday for a 5-day event, Kaizen event, and they call them a team, but they're not a team. Right. That's what I had to do every week, was go build a team over and over and over, a team out of a group of people. And that's where I really honed these skills, was I had to learn to do it quick. I mean, there's a lot of leaders can't ever do it in a lifetime. I had to learn to do it with a hostile group in 5 days. And,
Carlos is saying, to go fast, we must go slow first. Connection.
That's
matters.
right. Carlos knows. I've been mentoring Carlos for a while, like Jason, and you know, some of those folks who follow me have gotten on, and it's cool to see them getting on. And you know, you're a follower, Felipe, and I appreciate it. And we like pouring into those folks like you. I just want to touch on what you just said though, because you know, and you read it in the book already. You just hadn't asked the question. Maybe you're about to. If you don't mind, I'm gonna just roll off of your thought right there.
Good.
But I call it. There's a chapter in there called "Priming the Pump." But that whole book is about priming the pump. The pump is the team, but priming the pump means I would go in and invest the first 4 hours on 20% of a week or 20% of a Kaizen event. I'm using a week because most of mine were always a week. So first 4 hours, I taught personal growth and leadership development. We didn't talk nothing about lean. We didn't talk about the process. I didn't want to see it. I wanted to meet the people, pour into them. 4 hours. And then first hour on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The coming 4 days, we would do an hour. Recharge the pump. Put the mindset in. Help get their mindset right. And then we could go out and kill it the rest of the day. So we'd get 8 hours out of a 40-hour week. But what you just said is what happened. It happened every week. It happened every time. Get everybody ready to work together and forget about all the stuff that's got them irritated and frustrated and that sort of thing. So, and I'll tell you, the only reason I ever went down this path like that was because of when I introduced this stuff to the very first Kaizen team. I just asked them if I could play that 1 hour audio that somebody gave me in 2008 that launched me into this thing that I am today, this person. And they said, okay. I put a 1 hour audio in the laptop, played it, and they sat around the table. You know, everybody was all listening. I didn't have nothing to say then. I'm just listening with them. Yeah. So we listened for an hour. We got done and, listened to that hour highlight version of the 7 Habits. And I said, what do you guys think? I said, is this something that I'm just crazy about and I need to leave this out of my lean events? Or is this something you think I should play every time and that everybody needs to hear it? And every one of them, it was unanimous agreement that I should play that every event. So, that's how it started, was just like you said, I let them lead me. If they would have said no, I probably wouldn't have ever played it again. But instead, I did what you learned in that book right there.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with that. And Brian is spot on with the two of you as authentic leaders. Thank you, Brian, for giving us that feedback. Love that. And I told you, Mac, I was like, Ria, both of you in this book, and Ria's multiple. I haven't counted how many times you show up in the book, Ria, but it's a bunch. It's more than a handful.
She's a good leader.
Yeah. And the amazing thing, Mac, is like the principles that you teach, it's just exactly as you said in the beginning of the book. They're more caught than taught. And I know it wasn't you that said it. You give the credit to somebody else, but you're absolutely right. Like these principles, and that's what made you and I so close together, because we could tell as we talk to each other, like we're aligned on values and principles and character development. And character development, I want to bring the conversation back to, because that is the part that people are A, hungry for, and B, you are absolutely right. There are not enough books on this topic. And this topic of character development is not something that people that have to go do and be good doers naturally will even get handed. Like, and I'm just thinking to myself, the last 2 years, I think your book and Katie Anderson's book, Leading to Learn, Learning to Lead, are the only 2 leadership books that have been recommended to me. And luckily you recommended one of them to me. Katie recommended me the other one. And so, like, people, if you're paying attention, like the leaders are out there. And Ria, we're going to get your book as well. I definitely want to pick up your latter book, because I think it's just fascinating. And I know it's going to be super value add. But what can the two of you all tell me about, why are you so focused on character development? And it just pours out of you, like in every interaction. Like, where is that coming from? What have you seen to make that so important?
Well, I think for me, and I'll let Max speak to it from his perspective, but character is who we are as a person, right? And that's going to determine how we do what we do. I mean, what we do is important. That's what we get paid for it at a job, right? It's the work itself, but it's how we do what we do that's determining our effectiveness in life, our influence with other people. And that all comes down to our character. And research shows us that as much as 87 to 90% of success in life and influence with other people is based on character. And, we don't always think about that. We think of being successful as going to get a skill or a degree or a certification and being able to do something. And it's important, but it's how we do it. Think of it from your perspective. I guarantee you care that your medical doctor graduated med school, right? I mean, there better be a degree hanging on the wall if they're practicing medicine. That's competency. But it's how he or she treats you, all of 5 minutes once a year that you're in the exam room, that determines if you want to go back. It might not even be the doctor's character. It might be the nurse that walks you back, or the receptionist that doesn't greet you when you walk to the front desk. So when we think about that really is fundamental. And that's one of the things I wish I'd known earlier in my career, is that being successful isn't just getting the competency, but developing our mindset, because it's raising that level of awareness relative to who I am and how I can interact with everyone else to increase my influence. Because we all want more influence, right? With more influence, life gets better. We get more options, we get more opportunities, and we all want more options and opportunities in life. It's just realizing that how I do what I do is determining my influence with every person.
Yeah, and we often talk about, and what Carlos is saying there on the screen, I see leadership development equals character development. That's something that I believe. I write about that in a lot of my books. Carlos is a good student, and I appreciate that plug. But that's what I'm talking about right there. Leadership development equals character development. And I always say the foundation of leadership development is personal development, which gets you still back to character development. And Dr. Henry Cloud, in his book Integrity, he says character is the ability to meet the demands of reality. I love that definition, because that means anything within your reality that you can't make happen, you got a character issue. If I walk in and I can't get the results from this team or a group of people, I got a character issue. They may well have a character issue, but I got to worry about mine. And if they got a character issue and I got a character issue, one of them may be that I ain't teaching them about character, right? Nobody is. And so he also defines integrity as the courage to meet the demands of reality. So character is the ability to meet the demands, but integrity is the courage to actually to follow through on it. And so when we talk about character development, a lot of people think, who don't study character, they think it means you're good or bad. And it does mean that, but that's like a very, very most basic level of what character is. But that's a lot of people, that is their definition. You're either good or bad, and that's still relative to your values. Everything's always relative. What determines if somebody's good or bad is what they value and believe in. Anybody who's the opposite of that is bad. Anybody who's the same is good. But, we often talk, when we're talking about character, that, Ria talked about what I call the 87-13 principle. 87% of your results, influence in life come from character, 13% from competency. But you may or may not believe that. You may not know that. It doesn't matter. You can validate. Anybody listening can validate. Have you seen people in the companies, they get hired for what they know, their competency, the 13%, but they get fired for who they are, their character, the 87%. Everybody can validate that. It even happens in personal relationships. Whenever we have a relationship and we don't want it anymore in our personal life, hardly ever is it somebody's competency. It's always their character. And there was a construction company leader I had as a client one time, and he was having to terminate somebody that had a really good high degree of competency. But after I got in there, they started looking at character a little more, and he was having a hard time, to get rid of this guy. And I talk about this in the Kaizen book too. I actually break it down. I ain't gonna break it down like that today.
I was gonna bring it up, and then you perfectly went right there, Mac. I felt like you were reading my mind.
I can see it coming through, that energy, man.
I was so glad you went there, because I was like, well, I hope Mac goes there, and you did. So you did not disappoint me.
Yep. So I asked him, I asked him that about, can you validate? Most of the time when you had to fire somebody, it was their character and not their competency. And he said, as he thought about it, he's like, every time it's been their character. And I said, okay. I said, relative to your resources, your time, energy, and money that you put into training, and this place had a phenomenal competency training program within their construction company. I mean, it was awesome, and they did a great job with it. But I said, relative to where you spend your resources, time, energy, and money, I said, what percentage of it goes to competency? What percentage goes to character? You can see the mirror, that invisible mirror started easing up.
Yes.
And he said, well, before you came in, it was 100% competency and 0% character. And I said, where'd you just tell me all your problems were with the people? He's like, well, 100% of them character problems. I said, so what do you think about that situation? He's like, well, it makes a lot of sense. I spend all my money, time, and resources on competency, and we got tons of character problems. I mean, characters turnover, characters engagement, characters everything. And Jason, you mentioned Jason earlier on the call. One time he and I was talking, and he calls me Mr. Mack. I've been mentoring Jason for 10 years. And he said, Mr. Mack, one time though, somebody, I hired somebody and they couldn't do the job. And if I'm remembering this right, I got a lot of folks I mentor. Might be getting two of them mixed up, but I think he said, he told me he could do the job, but he couldn't. He didn't have the competency. I think it's the way he was telling me that day. And I said, so you hired him thinking he could do it because he said he could do it, but he couldn't do it? He said, yeah, his competency. So had to let him go because of his competency. I said, but he told you he could do it and he couldn't do it. He's like, yep. I said, well, what we call that when somebody tells you one thing, but it ain't the truth. What we call that is a lie. Yeah. So all that comes back to a character issue. Character is the root cause of everything. I mean, it's a root cause, good or bad. It's all related to character.
No, it absolutely isn't. And I want to just, people, you're watching the show, you're watching this on replay, you're watching live. You can come and talk to Mack and Ria in person this October in Detroit, the Motor City. So I just want to remind you all that you can have a chance to come shake his hand, shake Ria's hand, and get to know what they're talking about. One of the things that you said in the book and Kaizen Leadership, Mack, that really hit me, it just hit me like a ton of bricks on that section you were just talking about, doing that evaluation. I know I work with a friend, shout out to my buddy Brian at Field Verified. He is super hyper focused on bringing people in based on character and almost always teaching all the competent stuff later on the job. They almost don't even, I'm putting words in Brian's mouth, but it's almost like he tries to find people that don't have the skills on purpose. So they're more open to learn what the skills are, but he's really focused and intentional on how they hire people. And yesterday I was talking to one of his leaders in the company, Ryan, and Ryan even said to me, we're talking, and he's like, I think that we have really good people that work here. We never have character issues. And that's I know, it's Brian spent so much time. I'm even picking you. It was it went through a lot. It was very intentional, and it's special. And I think, Mack, as I'm reading through your book, and you talked about leaders that like to direct work and that don't even answer, in my mind, I put up the Rolodex of all the times that teams would ask a question of a leader and the leader would not answer them, and what effects that had on the team and what kind of leader that they were. And you use this phrasing all throughout your book, which I absolutely love, where you talk about high impact lean leaders, and then you have the other. And I'll let you say what the other is before we pivot. I want to just shout out to Lucien. Always great to see Lucien here. Thank you, Lucien, for your support. So, Mack, you talk about high impact lean leaders. What's the other type of leader, Mack?
I ain't catching up with what you want me to say. I always say low impact, but yeah. Is that what you're talking about? The low impact? Exactly. Yeah, and a lot of them are not low impact leaders. A lot of them are low impact managers, managers of people. So there's kind of a spectrum there. You got high impact leaders and you got low impact leaders, and then you also got high impact managers and low impact managers. Successful people who have a great business, but they don't lead people well, they're high impact managers. They're able to direct people well and treat them like objects and get results out of them. Even if they have high turnover and all that, they can be very profitable. But to be a high impact leader, you got to have a high degree of character. People have to want to follow you. So I don't know what you just want me to say literally about that, but
I just wanted to hear you say about the low impact leaders in your own words. Because I don't know what it is, Mack, but when I hear it in your Southern accent, it just sounds so much better.
Well, one reason I use those terms, though, low impact leader and high impact leader, is it's kind of self-explanatory. When you talk leadership of people and management of people, and people don't really understand what management of people is and what leadership of people is, you can say it and they can nod, but they don't really know what it is. And so low impact leader and high impact leader, people know that one of them's getting really good results, one of them's not. And so that's kind of obvious. But, I would share with the folks, since we're talking about lean and you were talking about competency and hiring for character, my son, he hated me from 15 to 19, but I discovered this leadership development stuff when he was 17, worked on me for 2 years, and was able to rebuild the relationship 2 years later. And then he wanted to come work with me, and I was doing lean consultant. And I had been 20 years of, gaining 20 years of experience to do that and do it effectively. And he had 0 years of experience, and he just wanted to do it. And I said, I leveraged my influence and said, hey, you got to start reading all these books that I've been reading, and you'll be able to lead lean. You can lead it just like me. All you got to do is learn what's in these books. You don't have to learn nothing about lean. I'll put up a PowerPoint and you can learn about lean when they learn about lean, and you'll kill it as long as you can do the people side of it. He come in and watched me, Felipe. He watched me lead a 5S event. He watched me lead a quick changeover event. And he watched me lead one of those standard work events where we go out and we analyze the current state, develop a future state, tear it apart on Thursday, put it back together, and go validate it on Friday. He watched me lead 3 events standing in the back of the room. And he had been reading these books for a couple of months, and I saw he naturally resonated with him, just like it did me. It just stuck. He could teach that stuff like I could teach it. He ain't been living it like I've been living it,
Right.
but he could talk it and teach it. And at that point, he didn't have to be living it, the way I'm living it to do lean. He wasn't doing leadership development. But he went, after 3 weeks, he's in one state and I'm in another state. He's 19 years old. But see, he would come in on Monday, not trying to put down an iron fist of authority or position or title or experience or nothing. He'd walk in and say, first thing I got to tell y'all, I'm 19 years old. I don't know nothing. So if something's going to happen this week, y'all got to make it happen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to help us work well together. I'm going to ask stupid questions. I'm going to put up some PowerPoint stuff. We're going to learn it together. But he'd teach the leadership stuff too with them, because he wasn't trying to tell them how to be. He was just trying to provoke thought and raise awareness, which is what we're always trying to do. And so he killed it. And he said, by the way, if we run into any obstacles we can't remove, he held up his cell phone. He said, I can call my dad. He can call the big dogs, and we can get them removed, and we're going to make it happen. And he killed it, man. I mean, there was people with 30, 40 years of experience with master's degree in engineering and had lots of experience and had shadowed me for many years on many events because, they were the internal contact for me. So they shadowed me and they couldn't lead events like my son, Eric, could lead events with 0 experience because they tried to do it with authority, formal authority. He walked in, tried to do it with moral authority, building relationship, doing all this stuff. And he did it for almost 2 years. And I mean, he slayed the dragon week after week after week after week with 0 experience.
Yeah, that's how powerful that percentage that you gave, the 87-13, and I'm almost like embarrassed that I remember that number because I'm usually not so good at remembering numbers, but that's how powerful these concepts are. They're really sticky and they stick to you and you take them with you. So I want, people that are watching, Mack and Ria are just a treasure trove of information and knowledge. And I want to give the listeners and the watchers a chance to poke a few questions out of y'all before we put a bow on this and y'all get started on your glorious road trip to hang out with Jason.
Yeah.
I got to get started on some glorious work as well. But I want to make sure that we hit opening question is if you could each share something that you've seen new leaders in leadership positions, either with, and hopefully the people that volunteer, people like that. What are some of the things that as a leader starting out, like someone's watching the show and they've not had to stand up and lead a team, what's something that you would like coach and mentor them as they're going to get ready to spread their wings and have people follow them?
Yep. So we only got a couple of, 8 minutes, 7 minutes. So we're going to keep really tight, little short answers, both of us. But for me, it's be authentic. If you don't know, say you don't know. Get rid of your pride and ego. Assume those folks doing the job do know, because they do. If they want to tell you, build relationships with people, but don't make it about you. I always say it ain't about me, but it started with me, meaning everything that's going to happen is a result of me working on me ahead of time. So prepare yourself with the leadership development, personal growth content on the front end before you need it. Character test is always a pop quiz.
Character test is always a pop quiz. I love that.
Yeah, to me, I think the one thing that new leaders, particularly in a formal position of authority, need to understand is the mindset shift from it's a different skill set to go from me doing the work to now trying to inspire and influence somebody else to do the work. And a lot of times we don't know what we don't know about leadership and influence. And so we try to jump back in to do the work because that's what we know. A lot of times that's how we got promoted, was we were good at doing the job. And so the mindset shift is not to treat our team members like the objects, right? The chairs and the desk doesn't have an opinion if you rearrange the office, but the person whose office that is has an opinion about that. And you can rupture a relationship just like that by just treating someone as not even meaning to, right? Just trying to treat them and manage them as an object instead of slowing down to try to influence them, build those relationships and connections, and inspire them. Because people have thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And if we don't take time to respect that, then our journey as a leader will be short indeed, and we will end up as the low impact leader Mack was talking about.
Exactly. It's a super good point. And I think Jade's got some, I completely agree, Jade. Like that is exactly right. When it's done well, I think Mack, you said in the book too, like I've always tried, I'm paraphrasing a Mack quote, I've always tried to do lean with people and not to people, because you've seen what happens when it's done to people. And I see that every day, Mack, like across so many conversations, organizations, project teams where it's somebody in authority wants to affect a change, but they don't necessarily know how their character is going to show up and play that change. Like, have you made enough trust deposits where you can make a withdrawal and ask people without influence or direct people, like you said? So what's something that a newer leader can aspire to do to increase the trust with the people that they want to lead? Either one of you can take that.
Well, real quick for me, it goes back to what I learned initially from the 7 habits. Habit 5: seek first to understand, then be understood. Don't walk in when you're leading a lean team, especially a Kaizen event. Don't walk in acting like you know everything because you got 11,000 hours of leading lean teams like I did, right? I didn't walk in and act like I didn't know nothing about what they were doing. They were the experts. And I just said, I got some stuff. I got knowledge y'all don't have. Y'all got knowledge I don't have. And if we can value each other's ignore the differences, value the strengths, we're going to have a phenomenal team. But again, I did that based on top of character development. Then I taught them a lot of these principles. You got anything?
Yeah, I would just add to that, and I think this is a Mack quote, but confidence is the difference. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and that's humility, right? And it does go to our head sometimes when we get into a new position and new responsibilities, and that can be exciting, but also having the humility to remember there's so much that we don't even know we don't know, and be willing to be the student just as much. I think that's always going to be strong when you're trying to influence people, is saying, hey, I still have something to learn too. And we all learn from each other.
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah, go ahead and add on, Mack. I'm just showing people where they can find y'all's website and keep the conversation alive as they're looking for more resources. Everyone, blue collar leadership, bluecollarleaders.com, a treasure trove of stuff out there. So definitely get out there. Go ahead, Mack.
That's awesome. I just say, for people to check out the special offer right there where people purchase our books. We come speak basically for free. And then the speaker information. If you watch this live interview here and you want to learn more about us or introduce us to someone, go to that speaker information page right there. And that video you see at the bottom, that's a 6-7 minute video of 20 blue collar leaders who went through a 3-day workshop with us and feel what they got to say, because they got a pretty powerful message. But that's where you introduce people to us, is that page right there. There's a lot of good stuff there. But I would tell people real quick that I don't do lean, continuous improvement side of lean anymore. Most people would say I don't do lean at all if they don't understand it, but I still think I do 100% lean. I just do the respect for the people side of lean 100%. I don't do the Kaizen events, because what I found out is the missing link is true respect for the people, which I call development of the people, because they're people that are valuable.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Mack. That's a perfect, powerful close. Ria, we're going to give you the last word because Mack and I talk too much, so we're going to give it to you.
No, I was just going to say, Heather, I can't wait to meet you too. Please do make sure you come up and introduce yourself. I love your comment here, and just interesting comment about thinking about how these concepts, I'm quoting Heather here, thinking about how these concepts can impact our suicide rates in our industry, because giving people a voice impacts positive change. And I think that's so powerful, because so many people don't feel understood or respected at work. And that's so central to who we are as a person, right? Our work gives us meaning. And when we don't feel listened to or respected in such a large part of our life, it absolutely affects our mental health and our perspective.
Absolutely does. Then Heather is going on to ask Mac if you could share that video that changed your life that you used to share, and people said you got to keep showing this in all these Kaizen events, Mac.
It was a 1 hour audio highlight version. It was an audio disc. You probably could get it on the 7 Habits store. I think maybe you could find it there, but it's a 1 hour version.
They have a 1 hour, a 6 hour, and then I think the full unabridged version is like 13 hours. But it is just a 1 hour abridged audio of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey.
And there is a 100-minute video that's out there of Covey. You go find that one. That's phenomenal.
Okay, there you go. Value delivered. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you come on the Easier, Better for Construction podcast. You get beautiful guests like Mack and Ria Story that delivered. I am ready to go out and follow some great leaders and also lead other teams, just like the two of you all have. Thank you both so much for coming on to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to wave goodbye. Keep those comments coming. If you're watching this on the replay, Mack and Ria and I will be watching that to answer your questions as we go forward. Thank you all so much. Have a beautiful day. Very special thanks to my guest. I'm Felipe Engineer Manriquez. The EBFC Show is created by Felipe and produced by a passion to build easier and better. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, everybody. Let's go build.